Well, hopefully I will give you some really practical advice on how you can deliver significant results within a very short period of time by using Six Sigma and the contribution we have made to Generali's OpEx program of delivering 1.5 billion by 2018. Little bit of background to me. I've spent something almost 30 years leading process improvement and business transformation. Started as a salesperson at Procter & Gamble, and after 5 years of that, helped implement total quality management. That was back in 1988, so my goodness, that shows how old I am. And then joined Texaco to then spearhead to lead their total quality management program. After a couple of years, they then sent me to the US with the Texaco Quality Institute, where I worked with organizations like Motorola, Xerox, AT&T. So I learned about Six Sigma directly from Bill Smith, the father of Six Sigma, and then headhunted by GE to then lead Six Sigma for all GE Capital's 27 businesses across GE Capital Europe. That was an experience I presented to Jack Welch personally every time he visited Europe, at least every quarter, always number one on the agenda, given 4 times longer than any business unit. And when I said to Jack, I've delivered $70 million net income, by the end of year 2, you had to prove to Jack, you can't pull the wool over his eyes. You had to prove that that 70 million came from the Six Sigma, the rigor of Six Sigma, not a market upturn or indeed business acquisition. In the 4 years I was in that role, we made a business acquisition on average every 10 days. And these were huge. GE Francona, Budapest Bank, Sovac in France. So it was a very busy period. I was always the first person there to parachute it in to try and onboard the acquisition. And then I was headhunted by David Andrews, and we formed. I was the first employee of his, a founder of Exchanging. And within 7 years, we floated Exchanging on the London Stock Exchange at a market cap of 660 million. And then we went on to build it up to over €1 billion a year with 8,000 employees globally. And I was always the global head of process excellence for Exchanging. We took over whole back offices, so 1,000 employees from Deutsche Bank doing security processing, or the London insurance market, of course, which we're still here, BAE Systems, human resources, procurement. So a very new outsourcing model where we'd take these pieces of the business over and guarantee to our customer we would deliver value of at least the cost base that we took over within 10 years. So we had to deliver. Exchanging have only just been acquired by CSC. So 2 years ago, I joined Generali as their global head of Lean Six Sigma. And so in just 2 years, we've implemented, trained internally, just myself and 3 others, 200 black belts, green belts, and we'll deliver 26 million of annualized benefits this year. I'll tell you how I've done that. The difference between Generali and the other companies is I've had to sell it internally. When Jack Welch says jump, of course, Jack, and how high? You will have 3% of your employees as full-time black belts. You have no future if you haven't been a black belt. No career progression, no stock options, and so on. So it made it very easy. Likewise at Exchanging, I said 1.5% of your employees have to be full-time black belts. Generally, very, very different, very consensus-driven. So I've had to actually sell the benefits. It wasn't a mandated top-down program. So what I'll tell you is how we've actually integrated it into the OpEx program. I mean, it was very exciting at Generali. For the first time, we're implementing global operations. Incredible that an organization the size of Generali have never had global operations. All the businesses run by silos. France never talked to Italy, never talked to Germany. So for the first time, we're implementing OpEx and basic continuous improvement like Lean Six Sigma. And so how have we done that in just 2 years, 22 countries, business units across Europe, in addition to that Asia, with me and a team of 3 people, and we will deliver 41 million of annualized benefits at the end of this year. And how we've integrated Lean Six Sigma with other initiatives, NPS, or I've mentioned there just robotic process automation. That's something that I've now leading for the group. And then the benefits, disadvantages of a company-wide program and standardization, and next steps at Generali. Okay, Generali I mean, look at the figures there, 80,000 employees in 60 countries with 70 billion euro in premiums every year, 480 billion euros of assets under management. And so quite a huge task. And our OpEx program, all the details are in our annual report, or of course the business presentation that we make to the analysts, to the market. But it really has three strategic imperatives. There is the OpEx, operational excellence. In addition to that, what we call commercial excellence, or TechX. So OpEx and TechX. That's the real insurance competency there. In addition to that, the focus on the client distribution excellence. So the Lean Six Sigma program clearly affects all three, but particularly on the operational excellence, and of course helping on the customer side as well, becoming much more customer centric. So the objectives of our Lean Six Sigma program, really it's key, and I was delighted to hear a few other speakers talk today about, I think the reason we've been so successful is we have positioned, and the business units have seen, that it is a competency to help enable them to achieve their business objectives. That's key. It's not ever seen as just initiative on its own. And whatever they be, unit cost reduction, revenue generation, improved customer service, or risk mitigation. So that whatever targets they have, we've positioned it to help them achieve those. And again, to build up the Lean Six Sigma competency within their own business units. The results last year, we achieved 15 million of annualized benefits last year, the first year of the program, trained over 500 people in our 2-day executive awareness, executive champion training, and 160-odd black and green belts, and as well as lead some strategic projects like building from scratch a unit-linked platform in Ireland. So the focus this year is that the businesses have committed themselves to delivering another 26 million of annualized benefits in 2016. And expand the Lean Six Sigma program into different countries, different business units, as well as headquarter functions, which is good. I really want to prove to them that you can apply it to headquarter service functions, not just operations. So we've got some excellent projects underway now with strategic planning and control, which covers the whole business, with group audit as well. And again, strategic projects like RPA. In the long term, really continue to expand into new countries, new geographies, and lead others, process-led projects, and help, again, guarantee that we achieve that 1.5 billion by 2018. We're already on track to do 1 billion savings at the end of this year, then another 500 million by 2018. This is our roadmap. So as many other speakers have talked about, it has to start with a mindset change. I'll go back to Jack Welch, who always talked about, I remember an expression of his, all the tools and techniques won't make any difference unless you get people's software right. So focus, you have to focus there. And at GE, of course, they introduced the CAP change acceleration process before the Lean Six Sigma initiative. And then, of course, don't automate a broken process. So follow that roadmap there. Of course, the Lean Six Sigma DMAIC, it's hundreds of projects that deliver those millions. So in 2015, for example, the projects that focused on productivity delivered roughly 130,000 euros annualized benefits. But of course, a lot of projects aren't focusing on productivity, customer satisfaction. So it was roughly 150 projects led to that 15 million. And each project, we insist, never lasts more than about 4 or 5 months. So that's how those numbers are delivered. In the ideal world, we implement all of these different continuous improvement methodologies. We've only really been able to do that in Ireland, where we've only got 400 employees, so it's easy to focus around that and develop that unit-linked platform. So we have the Lean Six Sigma, the top-down strategic projects, but in addition to that, we've got the bottom-up, the lean approach. And then in the middle, if you like, Kaizen events. So lots of Kaizen events. So bring 6 full-time equivalents from our Finnish business over onto the platform in Ireland to be done in 2 weeks. Nice little Kaizen projects like that. And then so in addition to those 2 prongs, then of course the design for Six Sigma. So ideally you use design for Six Sigma to develop processes from scratch for new services to customers, or if your process is so broken, you might as well just redesign it. So that's the ideal world. But really, across Generali, the size of Generali, I'm not able to implement, the ideal. So really, I've just gone for the strategic, top-down projects identified by the leadership team and implemented across the group. This is the focus. So myself and my 3 colleagues, we really focus on building capability development, executive awareness. So last year we ran something like 26 of our 2-day executive champion trainings, 500 senior leaderships went through. That was in 13 different countries to get their buy-in so that they can lead the programs in their business and also then become champions of the projects themselves. The belt training, black belt and green belt training, we run that. And again, all the certification that goes with it. Again, all done with the 4 of us. Internal certification, green belt 2 projects, successful projects, black belt 4 projects, an exam, and attend the training. Alignment with Net Promoter Score. Build a community to share best practice. No point reinventing the wheel. I'll give some examples of that later. And then master black belt coaching as well. We even take their best black belts and train them into master black belts. So already now we've got master blacks within 2 years, master black belts now coaching and mentoring their own black belts and green belts. The program management is a key element that we all focus on. We're relentless. I mean, it's my GE background, but relentless on quantifying the financial benefit. If anybody says, oh yes, 15 million last year, oh yes, show me, they can look at the spreadsheets. Every single project documented exactly what's been delivered, who the belt was, and so on. So really very rigorous quantification of the financial benefits. We always measure productivity improvement, cost saving, revenue generation, and then the impact on the customer. In addition to that 15 million or 26, there's also risk mitigation, which you can't really, we just know that we've now eliminated the possibility of being fined and given, a huge risk, for example. But that's how we measure. And we really track every quarter business reviews with the business leader. You said you were going to have X number of belts, X number of projects, and whether they're on track to deliver. That 26 million is, of course, broken down by business. And I'll tell you what, robotic process automation, I just think there's a really good link there because, of course, you have to really understand the processes first before you can make use of that technology. So it fits very well within our global Lean Six Sigma team. The Unit Link platform in Ireland, we're continuing to build that. And one of my colleagues is working on shared services. Oh, gosh, sorry. This is the slide I'm most proud of. I developed this when I was at GE Capital and did it at Exchanging, all of the enterprise partnerships we had at Exchanging, strategic customers, and frankly followed it here at Generali. I can promise anybody that we will deliver a 4-fold return on investment within the first year of the program. And this is how we do it. So start off with, of course, identifying the scope, the potential belts, the potential projects, and then most important, that 2-day, or it could be 1 day if I think I'm not going to get certain people to the 2-day version of the executive champion training so that they can lead the program. And then we go through the standard black belt, green belt training, so that they're not seen to be out of the office on a jolly for 3 weeks, but they're absolutely leading a project as they go through the training. They go into the training with a project charter, and that otherwise they don't start the training. They do define, measure, learn about measure, data collection plan, spend a month out back in the business collecting the data on their project, bring it back in for week 2, analyze, learn about an analysis of data using Minitab statistical analysis software to analyze their data during the training, and then learn about implement and control in the final week, and then they're expected to go and implement results of their project within 2 months of completing their training. And of course, ongoing Master Black Belt support. We don't differentiate between black belts and green belts. I know most people do. But in Generali, we don't really have the luxury to have full-time. If I went round and asked for full-time, you're very high potential, best people, as I have in my previous lives, I wouldn't get too far. So we have majority of green belts. But actually, green belts can deliver even more than full-time black belts when they're real subject matter experts. We've made it clear that they should work on projects that they are responsible for in their day job. This is to help you achieve the project or the process that you are responsible for. So some people in sales, for example, are bringing in millions in their projects, and so we don't differentiate and say, oh, well, you're only a green belt, you're only going to get 2 weeks or a week versus a black belt. So we put them all through the same training. So you can see from the program, they'll then start their second project, ideally even before they finish their first, so that they will complete 2 projects by the end of the year that we start the program. This just is an example of the 2-day executive champion training. That's the leadership team. Fred Loy, who was the CEO of Switzerland, now the CEO of Austria. But, the whole leadership team of Switzerland, and we've done that with all the countries. So when you have the whole leadership team in the room, not only the people who lead life, non-life, but the sales and marketing director as well. So therefore, a third of the projects were focused on revenue generation, business growth, not just operations. That was the best compliment I could have when he actually summarized the end of the 2 days. He said, from headquarters, we usually get people who just come and thrust targets down our throat. For the first time, somebody's come from headquarters are actually an enabler, a support to achieving our business objectives. So that went down very well. This is the training that we've done to date, as I say, in the last 2 years. So we have trained 208 black belts, green belts, as I say, all internally. You can see by country. You can see the actual numbers on the countries themselves. So 70 in Germany, 16 in Switzerland, 35 in France, and right across Central and Eastern Europe. Even Asia went to Hong Kong, started it there, but then left somebody else to do the training there. And of course, a lot of them had their own programs before. I mean, France, no, we're okay. We've got our OTR program. We've been running it for 7 years. But by probing and saying, well, what's that delivered to your business objectives? Well, a lot. Well, exactly what do you mean by a lot? Well, we think it has. But then you explain the Lean Six Sigma, the rigor behind it. So they're now delivering over 300 euros per project. Their previous initiative delivered 50,000 euros. Even Germany, they used to have a Lean Six Sigma program in place since 2007. We've gone then, added the rigor to it, so they're now delivering 150,000 per project instead of what was about 48,000. They lacked the Master Black Belt level, so we took 12 of their black belts and developed them into Master Black Belts to coach and mentor the belts, make sure the projects are scoped correctly, and so on. So we've even added to programs that were in place when I arrived. And we also summarized the projects, so you could look at exactly what projects are working on by function, in claims or customer service or service functions like procurement or finance, and then that helps to share best practice. So very useful, and also looking at the trend of projects. So of course the push at Generali is to become more customer-centric and focus much more on the customer. So it's good to start seeing projects move that way. Going back to GE, for example, again, the program at GE Capital was completely focused on productivity for the first couple of years. Then, quite rightly, Jack Welch said, right, now we're going to focus on the customer. And you might have heard the, for the customer, to the customer, and the big customer initiatives. And you can see that if you improve productivity, take in Generali a life policy. If you make a sale for a life policy on the phone, and then you took, which was the case, 2 weeks to get that policy document on the breakfast table, all sorts of things can happen. There's suddenly some news on the news, oh gosh, what's happening? Or competitors come in, or wow, that seems a lot, maybe I won't sign the document. So we can prove by getting the contract to sign on the breakfast table the next morning or even in 2 days what the take-up rate is, the conversion rate from making the sale on the phone to actually signing it. So you improve productivity, but that immediately impacts, the revenue generation. And you can absolutely measure that, the additional revenue you've got from improving your processing. So we are moving much more towards, focusing on customer satisfaction and helping. And that brings me on to the NPS. We call it Net Promoter System rather than score. I'm sure you're familiar with it. I mean, it just asks that one fundamental question. Would you recommend Generali to your friends, colleagues, and family? That one question. And of course, if the answer is 9, 10, and on a scale of 9, 1 to 10, how would you do it? So obviously, if it's 9 or 10, it's a promoter. But really, we look at the detractors and why would you not? And so it's a perfect trigger for Lean Six Sigma projects, looking at that data, and likewise Lean Six Sigma is the perfect methodology to help improve your rating, the score. So we work closely with them. Robotic process automation, I mentioned I was at Exchanging, and that was I got a huge pilot underway just as I was leaving. That's probably the best case study there is out there, the one done with Exchanging. And then when our CEO, Mario Greco, said, I want to implement into Generali something no other insurance company is doing, I thought, aha, I think I know what that is. So I've been leading this initiative at Generali. And really, there's a really good link with the process competency with Lean Six Sigma because, of course, you have to understand what the process is, a process map, all the key activities, and before you can then make use of RPA. So I think a really, really good fit there. But I think a huge opportunity for this for repetitive, rule-based processing where you're just taking data from one system to another and so on. So I think a huge opportunity ahead of us there. I was asked to also cover this, benefits and disadvantages of company-wide process standardization versus local flexibility. And while, of course, everything at the highest level can be totally common, whether that's core processes, claims management, claims processing, premium collection, across Generali, likewise the Lean Six Sigma program. Absolutely, there's just a few of us there, a standard approach. However, of course, it has to be modified for the different countries for all the reasons that I've listed there. Has to be modified. But the key learning, I think, is keep a very central, small team to build the Lean Six Sigma community, share best practice. In other words, by having such a small team, we have to just stay at the very high level and not, try to, tailor it too much to the individual countries' business units. On the sharing the best practice, what we have is at every wave of black belt, green belt training, so we're into our 7th wave now, we, at the last week, the last day of the 3 weeks of training, we have a best practice sharing day. So we've already got 24 participants on that particular wave of training. Then we invite anybody else. And they're all at different geographies. So the last wave is all in Central and Eastern Europe, the other one across Europe. Then we invite others to come and join that. And we have some best practice sharing across the group. We've got WebExes that we have with the whole community. And then we've got a SharePoint, where anybody can go into the SharePoint and look at every single project that's been run, a database. So anybody, any manager, anybody can go in and look at exactly where we are against that 26 million this year, for example, or all the projects we delivered last year. Or you can type in call center and you'll immediately be shown all the projects that are underway in call centers with the black belt, green belt, name, telephone number, email address to contact and share best practice. So, and in order to certify, the belts have to make sure that their projects are on SharePoint. One incentive to help get it populated. So my final slide is really, it goes without saying, but total leadership commitment. No change effort can happen without the leadership total buy-in. You must integrate Lean Six Sigma to achieve, so that they can see that it achieves the strategic business objectives. I think that's key, and I think that's why all 22 businesses have adopted the Lean Six Sigma program. As I say, Mario Greco, the CEO, did not say, you will do this. It's up to me going out selling to all the business. I'm off to Madrid tomorrow to sell Spain. I mean, it's country by country, selling it, but they see the benefits and therefore they adopt it. I mean, France, piloted with 7, saw the results, and now they've committed to 14 new belts every year up to Generali 2020, up to 2020. So they see the benefits, and keep the central team small. I mean, I think that's really, really key. And somebody else, the O2 presentation, Amanda, don't, I think I use the same quote. You don't feed people, you teach them to fish. They have to become self-sufficient. And 4 of us, we cannot do projects to them. It's impossible. So they have to build their own capability. And then minimize bureaucracy. Some of the businesses, I won't name which countries particularly, they just sort of invent these cottage industries, people just doing PowerPoint presentations and reporting. You don't need any of that. And steal shamelessly, share best practice, come to events like this and from the belts within the group. And then benefit sign-off by leadership. I think that's absolutely key. I think that's what, when they, in GE words, where's the meat? When they can see the huge impact that the projects are making, then that is the reason that they expanding the program and wanting to give us more and more belts within the program. Okay, well, that is my presentation. So I'm slightly ahead deliberately. So do we have time for a few questions? Of course.
Yes, gentleman there.
Clement from Mol. I just would like to ask you, what was your buy-in for Generali CEO? Because you said you had to make a buy-in.
Yes. Well, what was the buy-in?
Yep. I understand the story. I'm the black belt. But
right.
What was the buy-in? Because it's not easy to persuade company that is not fully in.
Yes.
What is the buy-in? What you did?
Right. Well, I'll give that example. I mean, Mario Greco was superb. He joined 3 years ago. He fired the entire board of directors, the next level down, and he said, and by the way, we're going to become more international. English is now the official business language. So can you imagine being over 200-year-old Italian company, and then to bring people like me in who can't speak a word of Italian, can now, but so you could see he was making very serious change, and then he was the one who decided to bring in a team to implement global operations for the first time in its history. So he made that change, but what he didn't do is get down to the level of detail. He was doing such big fundamental changing in the organization that he didn't get down to the level of detail that you will implement Lean Six Sigma. The businesses have their targets, that 1.5 billion by 2018. How they get there, is up to them. So for the first time in my life, I didn't have the CEO saying you will do Lean Six Sigma. So it was just an offering we within group operations have offered to the business units. Whether they take it up or not is actually their decision. So, you still can. I know we say, so when my slide before, when I say you have to have that, but not necessarily at the CEO level, but because Generali is very much run by business unit, you just need the appropriate level of commitment. Okay.
Do we have any more questions? In some of the previous conversations, there were some points being made regarding convergence of Lean Six Sigma initiatives and business process management. Do you see that as a trend, and what are your thoughts around that?
What, Lean versus Six Sigma?
No, not Lean Six Sigma as a tool to achieve operational excellence, and then a separate track about business process management, typically implemented as a part of IT transformational initiatives. documenting processes and so on, but then there's much more to it, and there was some conversations that in various other talks here regarding the convergence of those. Do you see that as a trend?
Yes, I mean, at GE, we really did business process management and really took it to that level of detail. The businesses have to have very detailed business process maps. I mean, I won't name any of the brand names, but you have to for compliance these days. And my goodness, the regulatory requirements are huge. So of course we have all that. We had it at exchanging when we ran, the back office of a Deutsche Bank for BaFin, and and we used ARIS but we don't involve that at all with the Lean Six Sigma program. Quality assurance or any of that, I just leave separate. I cannot get involved in that as well. So actually we, right or wrong, we just focus on delivering these results with the Lean Six Sigma program and don't try to integrate the two. That should be day-to-day business.
Okay, maybe just a last question, lady over there.
Hi, Helen Bliss from Marks & Spencer. Paul, really enjoyed your presentation. Encouraging for us because we're on a similar journey and we're at the very beginning, so it's great to see the results that you've had. I think what I'm quite interested in is in quite a small team, similar to as we are. How do you ensure that the strategic alignment really works in terms of the projects that are selected and then making sure that those KPIs are consistent?
Great. Excellent question. Yes, we have a very small team. Yes, 4 of us globally on a program like this. We all have different skill sets. We complement each other very well. So I'm the one out selling mostly, whereas one of my guys is fantastic with the numbers. So he does the spreadsheets and the analysis of quantifying the financial benefits. Another one really focuses on training. And the other one primarily Master Black Belt, even though and then we've divided up the countries amongst us as well. So actually I could have had just a 4-blocker showing you the 4 of us and exactly the sort of group responsibilities we have, like training, tracking the results, and the countries that we're all responsible for from a Master Black Belt point of view. So we share to help select the projects or share what's happening. We do it regularly. We have, a call every 2 weeks with us. There's the one person who does the training. He'll always have another one of us at the Black Belt, Green Belt training who has more of his people at the training. And the best practice sharing that we have at the end of each wave of training, the quarterly calls that we have, WebEx calls, and the dealings with the leadership team, we're all very consistent, I suppose, in how we get them to select the projects, the project selection matrix, the tools, techniques that we use, the training we put the leadership team and the belts through. It's all so consistent that we tend to, and I suppose with all of us as experienced Master Black Belts, we just make sure that all the projects are the right sort of scope, that the projects they'd soon get. At every Black Belt, Green Belt training, we'll always get the belt every week to present their project out to the team. And so the 2 of my team who are at that training will, stop a project if they don't think it is scoped correctly or not going to deliver the results. And quarterly Lean Six Sigma reviews with the business leadership as well. So we work very closely with them to make sure the projects are defined correctly and progressing well.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul.
I'll just say I'm staying for the drinks now, so please, any other further questions, grab me, or not now, sorry, after the next presentation, and I will be around all day tomorrow as well. Likewise, of course, you'll all get the copy of the presentation. You've got my contact details there as well if you want to follow up with any questions at all. Okay, look forward to working with you.
Thank you.